into service with the United States Air Force. By the 1990s, 17 other countries were flying it for air defense. The popularity of the F-16 is easy to explain. It's small, very fast, and highly maneuverable. Great characteristics for a dogfighter. In the hands of the right pilot, it can hold its own against anything flying today. And the F-16 has multi-mission capability. In other words, it can also drop bombs.
If you look up and try to see an F-16 from 13,000 feet coming down the chute in a 45-degree dive or so, and you look up at that airplane, you will not see it. You will not see it. At 8,000 feet, you might see it. And by the time you hear the sound, the bomb is going off in your face.
Aviators like the way the F-16 responds in the air, and they also like its unique cockpit. The airplane's seat is set back at a 30-degree angle. This helps pilots cope with the plane's 9G turn capability. The plane's bubble canopy gives pilots unobstructed vision. But the most striking feature of the F-16 is its fly-by-wire control system. The F-16 was the first fully electric fighter. All control commands are relayed by wires, not by cables or linkage controls. Pilot and machine become a seamless unit bonded by the plane's onboard computer. The F-16's APG-68 radar gives pilots a clear picture of air and ground threats. When the Falcon is in dogfighting mode, it can fire its two wingtip-mounted AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles, as well as Sparrow and AMRAAM missiles. In August 1990, F-16 squadrons began shipping out to the Persian Gulf. Squadrons were drawn from the active Air Force, as well as the Air National Guard and the Air Force Reserve. The 249 F-16s sent over flew out of at least 4 bases scattered across Saudi Arabia.
I've got a little bit over 10 years experience in the military now, flying lots of different types of airplanes. And when I went to the Persian Gulf, our wing did not take any, quote, inexperienced guys. We tended to take guys that had maybe more than 300 hours or so in the airplane, in F-16s, just so that it's stacking your team. If you have a group of pilots to draw from, you want to try to take the best team you can put together.
In the Gulf War, America's team included men and women. For Air Force personnel, female crew chiefs and tanker pilots were nothing new. But for some members of the coalition, particularly the Saudis, the sight of women working alongside men on the flight line was alarming. The Saudis were even more unnerved when they saw female officers giving orders to men.
They reported Gulf and Established Foxtrot. For the time.
Down for now.
Choctaw, relay.
But the sexual integration of the U.S. military was just one of the major changes that followed the Vietnam War.
There's no doubt about it. The Vietnam experience affected all of us deeply and provided us great insights. It started out at the national level, the President, Secretary of Defense, who were involved in detail in everything we did, and yet they would leave to the military those decisions that were the military's, picking of targets, for example. I think the fact that we fought the war unrelentingly is also an example. Where in Vietnam we'd use bombing halts and attempt to negotiate and do those kinds of things that would delay the conflict and prolong the suffering. I think all of us were death against that.
Turn around 8180, intercept for 160.
Okay, F-16 on top.
Roger that. Tally ho.
Boom. Set target. 190.
My first day in combat, shoot, yeah, I was nervous. And I concentrated a lot more than I normally do. My head was on a swivel the whole time, looking around to see what was going on, make sure nobody was going to shoot me. But I remember coming back off the target, once I got over the adrenaline rush, going, that wasn't so bad. I think I can do that again.
We will return in a moment to Weekday Wings on the Discovery Channel.
During January and February 1991, American F-16s bombed Iraqi military facilities, tanks, airfields, chemical factories, and supply lines. They also attacked Iraqi troops in and around occupied Kuwait. F-16s do not carry any laser-guided smart bombs into battle. The airplane isn't fitted with the laser targeting devices needed to drop such weapons. Because their primary targets were military positions in the desert, F-16s usually dropped cluster bomb units and 2,000-pound gravity bombs, weapons with no built-in guidance systems. Many were leftovers from the Vietnam War. F-16s dropped these bombs as part of the coalition's strategy of overwhelming force. The plan was to hit Iraq, particularly its ground troops, as hard as possible for as long as it took to break their will and force a surrender. When bombing, F-16 pilots activate the continuously computing impact point ordnance aiming system, a device that takes much of the inaccuracy out of dumb bomb delivery. A computer calculates airspeed, bomb weight, distance to target, and other factors, so when bombs are dropped, they have a high PK, or probability of kill. However, the higher a plane flies, the worse the PK.
Our bomb is designed around a very, very smart computer in the airplane to, once you pickle that bomb off, it's a hunk of iron falling to the ground. And although it's still a very accurate system, you're talking about, 50 feet is a very average bomb from 10 to 15,000 feet. But 50 feet sometimes is the difference between a miss and a hit. So our PK was certainly not as good as the very, very smart bombers.
General Horner and I were obsessed, and that's probably the right word, with having the minimum loss of life. And so there were restrictions that were placed on all of the airplanes as far as minimum altitudes they could fly during the day. And the F-16 was one of the airplanes that had to put up with our restrictions. And so we did not expect them to be as accurate. It's just a plain physics. But if you honestly do not believe that the outcome of a war is in question, and the only question is how many lives you're going to lose, then that's a prudent action.
F-16s and many other coalition planes were restricted to medium altitudes because of Iraq's Vietnam-style tactic of spraying the sky with bullets and surface-to-air missiles. By the end of the Gulf War, 2 F-16s had been lost to surface-to-air missiles, and 2 others were down by anti-aircraft guns. F-16 performance was also diminished by poor weather, and later by the oil well fires that fouled the skies. The F-16 is at its best on clear, sunny days.
120 at 10.
Standby, unable to give you radar.
There's a 10,000-foot layer, kind of a scud layer, where the sand would come up off the desert. The sand there is more like a talcum powder than the sand we know in our sandboxes. So, any kind of wind picked up, it'd come up in the atmosphere. So there's always about 10,000 feet, some type of restriction there and below. You could see down, you couldn't see out a good bit, except after a front came through.
But not all the F-16s were blind. 72 flew with lantern navigation pods containing terrain-following radar and a forward-looking infrared sensor. Perhaps the major test of the F-16's power and versatility came on February 24th, 1991, when after 6 weeks of air assault, the ground war began.
During the last part of the war, just before and when the Army came in, the sense of urgency of the target sets became more real because